Well, Dr. Huff, I'm going to come to you next. My goodness, there have been so many announcements coming out of the Department of Energy over the last couple of months. In fact, I think you had a recent one as early as this morning. And so as you look at options around building out supply and including fuel supply, what are some thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah, thanks so much. If you weren't up at night watching the DOE Twitter, you might have missed it, but our demonstration for high-assay, low-enriched uranium at a small scale in the United States had reached the end of its first phase, the construction of the centrifuges. So we competed the second phase, the operation and startup and demonstration of that cascade for HALEU production in Piketon, Ohio. And we announced last night, if you were in Egypt, and yesterday midday, if you were in the United States, that the selectee for that award is Centrus. So I'm really excited to say congratulations to Centrus. They will be completing the demonstration of that cascade by starting up and operating those centrifuges. The intent, of course, is that they should be in the full demonstration operation phase by 2023, producing 900 kilograms of high-assay LEU by 2024. This is a small amount. So congratulations to them. But this is just the beginning, right? This is a $150 million first step award, and will be, there may be options in the future to continue that cascade. But this is, before we even really get started with the implementation of our Inflation Reduction Act, $700 million, which will seek to make a request for proposals from industry to generate more high-assay, low-enriched uranium in support of the advanced reactor fleet that we expect to come online soon. That $700 million will include at least $500 million in offtake agreements from consortia of HALEU producers. But even that is not going to be enough. When we talk about low-enriched uranium, including HALEU, these components, the demonstration of Piketon and the potential for the IRA funding to support significantly more, ideally about 40 metric tons by 2030, are probably going to be needed for our advanced reactor fleet of HALEU. It doesn't even touch the low-enriched uranium that we need for the world's largest fleet of reactors. In the United States, we consume 2,000 metric tons of 5% LEU a year. And 20% of the conversion and enrichment capacity that we rely on to feed those reactors is from Russian sources, right? It's from 10X. And so, we intend to bolster our conversion and enrichment capability in the United States with similar offtake agreements as we're envisioning for high-assay, low-enriched uranium. We're looking forward to partnership with trustworthy allies, while, of course, we're also focused on expanding our domestic capacity for those things. We haven't gotten that part funded yet, but the Biden-Harris administration is working with Congress to find a solution so that we can support that front end of the fuel cycle in the U.S. It's huge, and, it's the most critical part of the supply chain, in my opinion, as we think about energy security. Maybe second would be the skilled trades workforce. This is going to be a big issue too, but thank you for that.
Well, thanks, Katie. Wow, my goodness, we've had lots of conversations. So we've concluded that we do need nuclear to be part of the solution. Even if we need nuclear, it's a lot of it. So she says triple it worldwide. You said double it at least in the United States. And, again, just to imagine that scale. So, in the United States, if you're talking about doubling, if you did it with small modular reactors, and I'm not saying you have to do it only with small modular reactors. I imagine that there will be big, medium, and micros. But if you did just do that with small modular reactors, it would be 300 small modular reactors. Now you're talking 300 between now and 2050, just to give people sort of a flavor. When we're talking about you need a lot of these things, that's a supply chain and a workforce and some challenges that we really need to get in the rhythm, if you will, of getting these. And that doesn't even talk about sort of the regulatory process, right? Our regulator hasn't been involved in a build-out of a nature such as that in decades, maybe one would argue ever. So lots to happen. And that means what? It means we got to work together to make it happen. And I know the U.S. and Canada particularly, we're both interested in the BWRX 300, and I know we're working very collaboratively together. And I know, Deanne, that you also see all of your different member countries with various levels of interest. There's a lot of work to be done here. And the best way to do that, right, is to work together to figure out regulatory processes, supply chain, workforce. We spent a lot of time talking about the climate, and I believe you mentioned it as well, Dr. Huff. As important as the climate is, energy security is now eclipsing the climate conversation in many countries. And that doesn't mean that the climate's not important. It just means that the immediate wolf at the door, if you will, is energy security. And what's interesting about that is nuclear does both, right? Nuclear is able to provide that energy security, and it's able to be a huge part of the solution for climate security. Well, thank you very much. You did a fantastic job. Great conversation. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.